All right, Libra, this one was weird seeing it come out because it was like, okay, so aggressively tracking something down, but then you're not meant to know. Well, then what the hell are you chasing after? So from Lee Vampire, you pulled Hunter, aggressor, tracker, and provider. And then mysticism from chakra wisdom. Now, Hunter is saying that now is the time for you to go after what it is that you want. You know, on the curse side, though, it's saying that you may be being a little bit too ruthless, but I don't think that that's it. But now with mysticism, the problem is you may be aggressively tracking something down, but you're completely blocking out your intuition, because the very first question for this is, am I ignoring my intuition, right? It's saying that you need to observe what is going on, right? Not to respond until you know for sure, right? It's the unknown. It's everything that is unknown to you. But it's almost like some of you may have like aggressively tracked something down or hunted after something or wanted something and went after it, but then not knowing what the hell now, what do I do now, or what's going to happen now, right? All right, Libra, here we go. Here's your overall for the week. Jeez, man. God, you know, Judgment's not a bad card. Karma here with this deck. But it always gets me, like, geez, man, why does it gotta be so heavy? Now, karma or judgment being the overall here, we're talking about you needing to review something before you can move forward, right? Something coming back up that you need to look at differently, you know, close the door on the past, right? Making amends with the past. But man, you know, oh boy, all right. So now, the King of Swords. The King of Swords is the past coming through. We could definitely be talking about you, Libra, right? Because you are looking at an air sign here with the King of Swords. And it could be that for some of you in the past, you may have been like very logical about things, you know, but for some reason you're being asked to review something in a big way with karma. Now, you could definitely be talking about a person from the past that is still, you know, very much a part of your experience right now. But when you're looking at the King of Swords, you're talking about somebody who, you know, doesn't really have an emotional side. But we'll see here. Oh, yeah. Yep. So for a lot of you, it is the review of a relationship here, possibly, you know, issues within a relationship being brought back up because of, you know, judgment and looking at the past and reviewing the past. You know, and then you have the King of Swords there. But you're looking at, you know, in the present moment, the emotional connection, right? Just besides the fact that we're talking about a relationship. Now, you know, again, with the Two of Cups, right, it doesn't have to be romantic, but, you know, we'll see here. Okay. Future conditions, the Two of Swords. So, and that may be why you're being asked to look at something. For some of you, you can't make a choice right now, or you're choosing to, you know, ignore your feelings because of the King of Swords coming through and that type of energy. For some of you, it's simply the choice between, you know, two different people, which is possible. But here in future conditions, you're going to be forced, though, with karma being the overall, to look at something, to make a choice, you know, to make a judgment on something. Like, you can't continue to ignore this. And for a lot of you, it's just you need to go through your own review here before you can get the clarity to make a difficult choice when it comes to a relationship, right? Your best path to follow, the Queen of Pentacles. So, you know, and I'm going to say the same thing that I said to Virgo. Looking at this as your advice, you know, for a lot of you, the choice here, the difficult choice is whether or not to get involved in a relationship where there may not be, you know, a whole lot of emotion to begin with on one part. But looking at the Queen of Pentacles, your advice would be to think about you right now and your own security and stability and your own sense of self-security, right? Like, when I look at her, you know, I love the fact that she doesn't need a king to help her. She knows how to create, you know, everything that she needs, right? She knows how to do that. She busts her ass. She makes things happen. But then I also feel like this is somebody who can become very insecure. You know, And if you're dealing with somebody who isn't responding to you on an emotional level, then, be careful about how that affects you, all right, in your sense of security, being secure with who you are, But then also I feel like, you don't need this. You don't need this. But I don't feel like this is a situation that has to, be over with. But if you are making a choice between two people, then yeah, one situation definitely is going to have to end. In your environment, the Page of Wands. Now, looking at that in connection to the Two of Cups, you're definitely talking about hearing what you want to hear, right? The relationship here is exciting. You want to move forward on this, right? But, is this because of a separate situation, though? And I say that because of the Two of Swords. Now, for some of you, it may be that you have dealt with, a person who is emotionally detached. They may be communicating to you now. There may be a better connection. But there are things that need to be reviewed that I don't think that you can ignore anymore when it comes to this, though, too. But I still see you, in your environment hearing, the good news, right? The things that you want to hear, the things that make you want to get up and go, And I'm looking at him, Now, this could definitely be about the other person who is reviewing things and coming back through and communicating to you. But it may be hard for you to make the choice here because of past experiences with them being emotionally unavailable. But I'm still looking at you needing to think about your own sense of security here. Your hopes and your fears, the Seven of Wands. I don't feel like this is a bad thing, but I do think that there are possibly things that you need to speak up about. And I think that this is you hoping to be able to voice that in a way that isn't too harsh or too blunt, but look, you're coming at me with this, but here is really what's going on in my mind right now. Standing up for yourself, right? I'm not going to do this again. Things have to change. I feel like more so is what you need to voice. And that's really about, you hoping to be able to do that in a way that isn't cold, because you've already experienced that before, but really it's just about you being able to say your piece more than anything, I think. And then coming out the Six of Pentacles. So, and that may be what is stopping you. I think that with the Six of Pentacles, and we're going to clarify this, I do think that, we're talking about equal give and take, right? And it may be that this person is meeting you halfway, but there may still be some issues that you're having difficulty, with. I do think that they're coming around in a way that, is exactly what you had hoped for, or I should say exactly what you wanted to hear. But I think that, your better judgment, though, is making you stop for a minute. But then, you can't, ignore the fact anymore that there were issues that need to be looked at. But I'm not seeing anything super bad other than, you feeling like you need to defend yourself or speak up about certain things. And then the Sun, perfect. It's perfect. But I still think that there is a part of you that is, still right? Because that needs to be addressed. Especially if you're talking about a person who is emotionally unavailable to you, looking at the Three of Swords dude, you hurt me, right? Let's fix this. With the World absolutely getting closure on that, which is great, but then also needing to think about what are the next steps to get there, more specifically for you, because you're having the difficulty here. And then with the Sun, right? Everything being out in the open. I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing here. I just think that there are things that are happening within, a relationship, whether it's romantic or not here, that need to be addressed because you were hurt at one point, and it's because I feel like this person wasn't there for you more than anything. But again, with the World, right? I mean, you got judgment in the world, but you need to look at things, right? And then speak up about, what you feel like was wrong. But like I said, with the Sun coming out, everything, is going to be better almost. You know, and I do see that this person is like making an effort. I really do think that they are. And I do think that it's creating excitement for you as far as the connection. But where did this person make you feel insecure? And I say that because of her being there. You know, and then especially with the Six of Pentacles, it looks good. So risk, you know, for you, it's like taking a risk here when it comes to making this connection because of the Three of Swords, which absolutely makes sense. But then, you know, like I said, with rebirth, it is something definitely being brought back up. And then new growth, there's potential for new growth to happen. Absolutely. Sorry, guys. You know, as soon as the weather starts to warm up, it seems like our little buddies want to come out and play. Where'd you go, dude? You need to leave. Yeah, it's time for ant spray. That's what I get for living out in the woods. If it ain't them, it's fucking spiders and Asian beetles and God knows what else. But anyway, Libra, there is potential here for, you know, new growth to happen with this relationship for you, you know, and it feels good to me. I just think that there are issues that have to be worked out, especially concerning whether or not this person was there for you before, you know. Be authentic to who you are. You are being asked to be real and true pertaining to who you are and how you feel. You know, and that to me is where, you know, you need to be honest with this person about how you feel like it's a risk getting involved because of what may have happened in the past, right? But consider your foundation. I always say that with this one, to me, it's saying that you're not really ready to commit just yet. You know, and with risk being there, it makes sense, right? But you need to be real with yourself, you know. And I do think that that's kind of where the Seven of Wands is coming in. But, you know, there's still that potential, though, for new growth. Now, you know, it doesn't have to be within the relationship, but absolutely, right? And then you have this sense of rebirth. But I do think that with Judgment, you're being asked to review things, you know, especially concerning the heartbreak that may have happened in the past, you know. And needing to have this person be there a little bit more for you this time. All right, Libra. So, you know, it's funny because if it's not orbs happening in your reading, it's either a ladybug or an ant. And I'm waiting for the day I have a huge, massive wolf spider come crawling across the reading. Oh my God, those guys are not fun. They scare the shit out of me. But anyway, as far as your reading goes, looking at Judgment as the overall, you know, there's something here that clearly needs to be reviewed within a relationship. And again, it doesn't have to be romantic, right? But I do think that it's going to have to do with the fact that there was heartbreak concerning a person who was not there for you. Looking at the King of Swords. You know, I think that this was somebody who I don't so much feel like that is you. I feel like, you know, this is the person that you're dealing with here. I think that the energy that you took on because of this person is, you know, being emotionally absent yourself. But for some reason, something is being said here that has got you excited about a possible connection, right? And it could be that this person is finally speaking up and saying the things that you want to hear, you know, and possibly trying to make that connection with you, but there's still a part of you that is looking at this going, you know, I don't know. There are things that need to be cleared up, I think. You know, and we're definitely looking at, you know, the absolute completion here of heartbreak, you know, and a better connection happening. But with the Sun, you know, again, like I said, it's seeing everything for what it is, but then also there is, you know, something being rejuvenated, brought back to life, and you have Judgment, and you have rebirth. You know what I'm saying? But looking at the Six of Pentacles, the only reason why this is happening now is because the other person is giving their part into this, right? Meeting you halfway. And I'm seeing that a lot with this one this week. It seems like everybody is looking at relationships and saying now that I can't be the only one giving. You need to give me something here so that I know that, you know, I am making the right choice for me. And that's where you are basically coming from. I do think that you need to look at, you know, how you have felt, though, because of this. Like how you have felt before, right? And needing to review that because of the heartbreak being connected to, you know, what has happened with this person. I think that because of them, there may have been like a feeling of insecurity, feeling insecure about who you are, more so than anything else. But then I do see you needing to speak up, though, too, about that feeling, right? But then also about the fact that you don't need them or you don't need this, right? But you're still there, though, giving your part to this with the Six of Pentacles. But it's only to get to a place where there is closure on that heartbreak. But I do think that there is potential for, this relationship to be better, Now with Hunter and then mysticism, it's like, right? You may have been like wanting to aggressively track, something else down apart from this. But there's like this, where is this coming from? Like, I'm not understanding, right? Like you're not meant to know. It's watching and observing before you go after. Now, for a lot of you, it could be that this is what you want and you want to go after this, but you need to see something from them first, right? And of course, needing to pay attention to your own instincts here. Now, as far as the soul trees, right, this is a risk for you. And I can understand, but is it really that much of a risk? But for me, it's only because there was a feeling of being insecure with who you were because of another person. Now, rebirth, obviously, right? But then new growth. This rebirth is going to cause new growth in your life, in your relationships. That potential is there, but are you going to take the risk and do this? Now, some of you may not be fully committed looking at Consider Your Foundation, but you're being asked to be real with yourself about that. If you're not committed to it, then maybe, this is something that you're not ready to choose just yet. Again, looking at the Two of Swords. But, I do see things being a little bit more clear for you when it comes to dealing with this person. And again, this is only going to be for some of you. For those of you who are dealing with a relationship where somebody has not been there for you before, right? But like I said, with the sun coming out, we could be talking about, you feeling better, things being better in terms of the connection, or you finally seeing everything for what it is and being able to make the choice here to either close the door on the past or, to continue this relationship, but then still be in a place where you feel insecure, But I would say, though, more so than anything, is you need to see them giving the equal amount into this, before you're willing to take that risk and actually make the relationship work.